At one point in time, Rick and Morty was considered to be the most popular adult cartoon ever, becoming a cultural phenomenon with millions of people falling in love with the series for its characters, creativity, and writing. And I was one of the people who'd become a fan of the show. But if I'm being honest, the cracks started to take shape during season 3. Not even to say season 3 was bad, but it was definitely a noticeable step down in quality compared to how good season 1 and 2 were. And then it kind of started to get progressively worse with each season. Season 3 was, I think, way too ambitious for its own good, taking a more serialized approach and kind of tampering with the development of the characters. Season 4 and 5 is where they decided to try be more episodic and make up for season 3. And while these seasons were still creative, that's usually all it would have going for them, with a lot of episodes being disappointing in their execution, especially with how characters would bounce off of each other. Instead of witty jokes, the humor became more reliant on meta jokes and it was painfully unfunny at times. It also didn't help that the show refused to commit to being episodic and would still try to tell the same story that they were telling, but being really self-aware about it. You'll almost have sincere moments, and then Rick would say a quick self-aware line and all impact would be completely gone.
Whoa, dead wife? Yes, now everyone can shut up about it.
Season 6 was an improvement over Season 5, but it would still run into problems with its writing and it would still have an over-reliance on meta-humor while trying to play things completely sincerely, totally messing with the story. By this point, I'd had enough. I was planning on just not watching Season 7 at all until I caught wind of Justin Roiland being out. For those who don't know, Justin Roiland has provided the voice for both Rick and Morty for the past 6 seasons and is the co-creator of the show. And after an onslaught of accusations that I won't be getting into, he was dropped from the show and was set to be replaced. When the trailer for Season 7 dropped with the new voices for Rick and Morty, I tweeted out saying that I was not impressed. I would officially like to revoke my statement. The new voice for Rick is Ian Cardone and Morty is voiced by Harry Belden. And while when I started out watching Season 7 it was a little distracting, I quickly got used to them and would go as far as to say that I actually prefer Ian and Harry's voices over Justin Roiland's. They honestly did an incredible job, not only in terms of the characters' chemistry together, but these guys are a lot more expressive when it comes to jokes and serious scenes than Roiland is. Ian Cardone especially did a phenomenal job. In episode 5 of Season 7, there's a scene in which Rick is beating the ever-living shit out of Rick Prime. And the voice acting here is amazing. You can hear Rick Prime's voice go from angry to weepy as he gets beaten worse and worse as he struggles to even talk. I can't imagine how tough it must have been to have been told to do a scene like this 5 episodes into the job, but he absolutely nailed it. Both of them nailed it. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's actually delve into Season 7. Rick and Morty Season 7 feels like it's in this weird state of limbo where they don't know what to do. Don't get me wrong, the good episodes in this season end up being the best the show has seen in years, but the bad episodes end up being some of the worst the show has ever seen. This season consistently runs into the problem of setting up a really interesting idea and then throwing it away and replacing it with something else. Hell, the first episode of the show is about Rick gathering a bunch of his friends together to help cheer up Mr. PB. This alone is a pretty interesting concept, and then halfway through they meet Hugh Jackman and they get fucked up. It felt like a Family Guy cutaway that lasted the entire episode. More instances of wasted potential were episodes 3 and 7. Episode 3 brings the return of Unity, a character we haven't seen since Season 2, and not only was that original episode really good, but it had a major impact on Rick. He literally tried to kill himself at the end of that episode. So revisiting their relationship felt like a no-brainer with a lot of opportunities, yet they do nothing with it. Instead, it's an episode about the president wanting to fuck Rick's therapist and briefly taking over the state of Virginia. At the end of the episode, Rick attempts to reconcile with Unity, which ends up not going his way, but it had barely any impact because of the shenanigans that had just transpired. Episode 7 has Rick giving Summer an attribute slider for a party. The slider gives the user the ability to change attributes like strength, intelligence, charisma, and dexterity, which of course makes Morty jealous. I originally thought this was going to be the return of Morty and Summer's high school adventures, but then Summer and Morty fight, fall into a pool, break the device, and the two end up fusing together with Morty becoming a Quado. Not only was this dangerously unfunny, but the rest of the episode is unbelievably boring. It doesn't make any sense to me when they set up the episode perfectly, and it's a really fun idea, but they decided to throw it all out for a 20-minute long joke about Total Recall, and then Rick shits on you with this line.
Thought the slider was gonna be the whole thing this week. Wow!
It's like the writers telling you, yeah, we know this is a good idea, but we're gonna do a bit of trolling.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
It's just so disappointing to see. Episode 9 also starts off with a really interesting concept for an episode, with Rick figuring out that there's an afterlife and decides he wants to go to Valhalla so he can harness his infinite energy. To be fair to this episode, it goes all in on its idea for most of it, and then drops the ball with the Pope and literally repeats the same joke over and over again. And finally, we have the literal worst episode in the entire show, episode 8. Did you ever wonder what happened at the end of the Get Swifty episode with Ice-T? Yeah, no, neither did I. Yet we still somehow get a sequel to that in the form of a Star Wars parody where they use the episode to make continuous puns about math. They also somehow came to the conclusion that they needed to exclude Rick from the episode. Let me repeat, they decided to exclude Rick from an episode of Rick and Morty. Morty is in the episode, but he's just a background character here to witness the absolute carnage that takes place. The worst episode of the show by far. Now, let's switch up the tone and talk about the things I actually enjoyed. As I said in the beginning, the good episodes in this season are some of the best the show has seen in years. I wouldn't say that they're matching season 2 level of quality, but I think they're a little below or even on par with some of season 3's best episodes. As I touched up on before, seasons 4 through 6 heavily relied on meta humor and forcing into your head that they didn't like serialized stories. And when they did try to be sincere, well, you know. I am very happy to report that not only is the humor improved, but the show now knows when it needs to be serious and when there could be jokes. Previous seasons relied on improvised comedy with Roiland, which was becoming more and more tiresome as the show went on, so I can confidently say that the humor and jokes in this season are a breath of fresh air. Instead of improv, the writers are using actually good situational comedy for the characters to bounce off of each other. Morty lying about bringing Rick coffee because he knows he won't like it, Dr. Wong calling out Rick for being a hologram, basically the entirety of episode 6 with the return of a Morty's mind blowers and interdimensional cable-esque episode. A lot of the gags in the episode are actually funny, like the whole gun bit with Rick giving Morty a bunch of different guns and being vague about what they do, or to end with a gun that shoots out Jeffrey Dahmer. The show clearly also isn't creatively bankrupt either. You have episode 4, which is about people killing themselves and becoming spaghetti, and the episode somehow works really well as a critique on consumer capitalism. It reaches a good balance of being dark and fucked up, but in a comical way, without being self-aware. Episode 2 was a brain swap episode, combining Rick and Jerry's minds together to create two completely new people, but keeping some parts of their original personalities. And while season 3 already had a Rick and Jerry episode that I actually preferred, it was a fun idea to see these characters tackle a situation like this. Episode 5 sees the return of Evil Morty, with Rick and Morty teaming up with him to kill Rick Prime. This episode is not only a really good one, but the killing of Rick Prime's subversion was a really good idea, because it opens the floodgates to explore Rick's purpose after killing the guy that took everything from him. And the episode works even better because it's played completely sincerely without cracking a single joke. And then you have one of the best episodes in the entire show with episode 10. It's a phenomenally written episode, essentially a character study on Morty. The entire episode takes place inside a fear hole, forcing the entrant to confront and overcome their deepest fears. This episode's misdirection is honestly insane. The entire time, the audience is left questioning whose fears you're seeing, Rick's or Morty's. The first big moment in the episode is the return of Diane, with Rick, not caring that he's essentially dying, wants to keep spending time with her, until he eventually snaps out of it, with the big twist being that Rick never jumped into the hole after Morty. Rick's entire time with Diane in the episode is a manifestation of Morty's subconscious, and it's revealed that Morty's biggest fear is his over-reliance on Rick, and his fear that he doesn't mean as much to Rick as Rick does to him, that Morty is just replaceable. But the most powerful part of the episode is the very end, when Morty tells Rick that Diane was in the hole and to not go in there. They leave the bathroom with Rick running back in and staring at the hole, and instead of jumping in like everybody expected, he pulls out a photo of Morty from his wallet and hangs it from the wall, proving that not only does Rick care about Morty, but that he, to a certain extent, trusts him, following his warnings to not jump into the hole. Absolutely phenomenal writing, and I believe that Rick and Morty season 7 is a giant leap in the right direction. I can't necessarily call the entire season good because there are quite a few things holding it back, but I also can't call it bad because there are a lot of things to enjoy about this season. But if season 8 keeps doing stuff like this while dropping stuff like episode 8, then I wholeheartedly believe that Rick and Morty could become amazing again. So, does Rick and Morty still suck? No. It's gotten a lot better this time around, and if it keeps on its current trajectory, we could have a great show on our hands again. But I guess only time will tell. I've been Antradox, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, okay? Antradox stocks are going to the moon this year, alright? But anyway, click here to watch me talk about how Sony beat Pixar.
You can get the biggest Chanel back in the store if you want it. I gave them the drill, they sucked it up, I got them on it. I bought a new Patek, I had the white, so I two-toned it. Taking these drugs, I'm gonna be up until the morning.